All right, now we're here at the sixth Mishnah of the third chapter of Mesechet Kinim. It brings us a list of cases which are to bring to a conclusion all of the cases of logic which we will ever see. So first and second chapters showed us all of the lechatchila cases, and now this is going to bring it to a conclusion all of the cases of b'di'evet that we're ever going to see. The Mishnah has some difficulty in it, but if you work through the pieces one at a time, you'll see that it's in a nice order and it's really very workable. It has a case like this. Ha'isha she'amra, the woman, she says, Harei alai ken. Harei alai is the language of neder, of a vow. She says, I have the obligation to bring a nest. Kishe'ered zachor, in the event that I will give birth to a male child. Yalda zachor, and then it happens that the condition is fulfilled and she gives birth to a male child. Meviah shtei kinim, so she's now supposed to bring two nests. Echad nidra, one for her neder, which you recall from the first Mishnah of the first chapter, B'nedorim kulan olot, which would be two olas. And one for her obligation, which is two birds, one which should be an ola and one which should be a chatas. Natatan the kohen, she gave the nest to the kohen. And the kohen would be required then to bring three of these birds above the horizontal line of the altar as olas. Two of them for her neder and one for her chov, for her obligatory set. Ve'echad me'lamatan, and one is a chatas, which is the chatas of her chov, of her obligatory set. Lo asakin, but that's not what the kohen did. Eida asa shnayim lamalan v'shnayim lamatan. He brought two above and two below, thinking that these are two ken chovas of this same woman. And he didn't do this out of malice or anything like that. He did this because he didn't understand the case, and he thought he was fulfilling his agency as a kohen to do it this way. Tzricha lavi od prida echas, v'yakrivenu lamala mimin echad. So the woman now has to bring one more bird and bring it lamala because she's missing an ola. She's missing an ola and this is all in the case where all of these are one species. So for example, she brought 4 pigeons. They were supposed to be 3 olas and 1 chatas. The kohen made 2 olas and 2 chatases. She still has to bring one more ola. So go out and buy another pigeon and bring it and have him bring it as an ola. That's where it's one species. Mishnaic meaning. But what if she brought 2 pigeons and 2 doves, intending that 2 of those should be for her ken chova, for her obligatory set, and 2 of those should be for her vow, for her neder. So she has to, mishnei meaning, tavi shnayim, she has to bring 2. Because the first pair that he brought, let's say 1 pigeon above and 1 pigeon below, that's her ken chova, that's her obligatory set. And the second pair that he brought, one is a chatas and one is an ola, should have been 2 olas. However, I don't know which species he brought second, so she now has to bring 2 birds, both of them as olas. 1 pigeon is ola and 1 dove is ola. So mishnei meaning from 2 species, tavi shnayim, bring 2 birds, 1 of each species, and make them both ola. Next case, same woman made the vow, brought the 4 birds, but in addition to making the vow, pirsha nidra, she specified her neder, which means at the time of her neder, she says, not only if I give birth to a boy am I going to bring birds, but I'm going to bring pigeons or I'm going to bring doves. She specified which species she wants to bring. Tzricha lavi od shlosha pridim mimin echad. If she only brought 1 species, she now has to bring 3 birds and make all of them as olas to fix this. Why? She brought 1 species. Let's say she brought 4 doves. She does not remember which species she specified when she made her vow. So for sure she has to bring 1 more dove as an ola to fulfill her neder if her vow was that she brought doves. But she also has to bring 2 pigeons and bring both of those as olas, because it might have been that when she specified her vow, she specified pigeons. So if she only brought one species, then she has to bring 3 birds to fix this, 1 more ola from that species, and 2 more olas from the other species. However, Mishnaic meaning, what if she brought 2 different species to the Kohen? Tavi arba. She now has to bring 4 birds to fix this. Why? Let's say she brings two pigeons and 2 doves. The 2 pigeons he makes as her ken chova, and then the 2 doves he makes as her second ken chova. The first ken chova is the one that works, the 2 pigeons. So if she said doves, she still has to bring 2 doves. If she said pigeons, her pigeons got used as her chova. She has to bring 2 pigeons as 2 olas for her neder. But I don't know which one he brought first, and I don't know what she said. So she has to bring 2 pigeons and 2 doves, all 4 of them as ola. Next case, kava nidra, which is, she said, if I give birth to a boy, I'm going to bring a pair of birds. And she specified which species. I'm going to bring pigeons. And she said, kava nidra, my intention is that when I do this, I'm going to bring it together with my ken chova as one big festive offering. Now, tzaricha lavi od chamish pridim minin echad. If she brought from one species 4 birds, and the Kohen put 2 above and 2 below, she does not remember what species she specified. So now she has to bring 2 pigeons and 2 doves as her vow, because she doesn't know which she's obliged to bring. And she has to bring 1 more bird of whichever species she brought as an additional ola of that obligatory offering, because in kava nidra she said, I'm going to bring it together with my ken chova. So if she brought one species, she now has to bring 5 birds, 1 bird of that same species, which is going to be the new ola of the chova, and 2 birds of that species and 2 birds of the other species, all 4 of which are going to be the ola for her neder, for her vow. However, if she brought from 2 species initially, meaning she said, when I give birth to a boy, I'm going to bring a specific species, and she said, I'm going to bring it together with my obligatory offering, and she brings 2 pigeons and 2 doves to the Kohen, and the Kohen did not understand correctly, and he brings 2 above and 2 below. Now she has to bring 6 birds to fix this. Who are the 6 birds? She has to bring 2 pigeons and 2 doves, both of which are her vow. All 4 of those are ola. She has to bring 1 pigeon and 1 dove to make sure that she has an ola of her chova, because she doesn't know if the first birds that the Kohen brought were pigeons or doves. So she brings 6 birds as ola, 3 pigeons and 3 doves. 4 of them are for her neder, for her vow, and 2 of them are to make sure that they're brought together with as one big festive offering with her obligatory offering. That next case, Natan the Kohen, she gave her birds to the Kohen. Ve'ein yadua ma natna. She doesn't remember what she gave. She doesn't remember if she gave 1 species or 2 species. B'halach ha-Kohen, and the Kohen went, va'asa, ve'ein yodea ma'asa. He went to the altar and he brought them, but he doesn't remember what he did. He doesn't remember if he brought 4, half of them above and half below, or if he brought all of them as olas, or if he brought all of them as chatases. Now it's the woman tzaricha lavi od arba pridim lenidra. So for sure she has to bring 4 more birds for her vow. 2 pigeons and 2 doves, all 4 of them are ola. V'shnayim nechovasa, and she has to bring 2 more olas as her obligatory offering. 1 in the case where to do the kava nidra, 1 in the case where the Kohen first brought pigeons, and 1 in the Kohen where the first brought doves. So she has to bring an ola of pigeons and an ola of doves as her for part of her ken choba, to make sure that they're being brought together with the birds of her vow. The chatas echad, and one chatas of some species, because it might have been that the Kohen brought all of her birds originally as ola, and she's never brought a chatas. Ben Azai, who you remember from before, went after the Rishon and not after the chatas. He said you have to go, it goes first and not after the chatas. Ben Azai Omer shtei chatas. You have to bring one pigeon and one dove, both of them as a chatas, because if the Kohen brought all of the birds as ola, and it was whichever species that the first one of those was, determines what species the chatas will have to be. That concludes this combinatorics of cases of different kinds of problems that can happen. Now we move on to the seifa of this Mishnah, which is a number of different things which look more like agadatot. Now you should know that the Chazal has, at least in the Mishnah, two different ways of presenting us with a socially sensitive or politically incorrect material. One of them, as we'll see here at the beginning, is in Agadata, or stories, story pictures. And the other one, as we'll see later, is in bringing us references from Tanakh. References from Tanakh, as we'll see later, should not be necessary in a collection of halacha like the Mishnah, because if Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Meir tells us to do something, we can rely on them. So when they're bringing us a pasuk, it's not to prove that they have authorization to tell us something, it's to tell us something in addition. So first we'll see the agadatot, and then we're going to see the psukim. And this should show us, with the logic of the rest of Mesechet Kinim, half of the structure of what we need to apply in what Rabbi Eliezer ben Kisma called Gufei Halacha. Amar Rabbi Yoshua says, Zehu she'amru kishuhu chai kolo echad v'kishuhu met kolo shiva. Rabbi Yoshua says, there's a case where he says that when it's alive, it has one voice. And when it's dead, it has 7 voices. It's a riddle. And he gives us one example of a solution to the riddle. He says, Ketzad, for example, Kolo Shiva, something that was one voice that when it was alive and now 7 voices when it's dead. A sheep, where actually a ram. Shtei Karnov, it's 2 horns. Shnei Chatzotro, 2 trumpets, meaning 2 shofars. Shnei Shokav, the 2 thigh bones. Shnei Chalidin, 2 lovely hollow bone flutes, because the bones are hollow. And that's the thigh bone is the long bone in the leg of the sheep, of the ram. Oro Letof, the skin for the skin of a drum. Me'av the Nevalim, the small intestines, the gut of the small intestines used for the strings of stringed treble instruments, like what we might call violins. B'nei Me'av, the kinorot, the gut of the large intestines used as the strings for bass stringed instruments, what we would call a contrabass or a bass guitar. Okay? V'yesh omrim af tzemeroda techedet. And there are those who say that the wool is used for techedet, for this lovely dye component. Now, just to explain first of all what techedet is, it's a dye component which was the most expensive dye in the ancient world. Though we don't know exactly how it was made, the chemical analysis of archaeological samples of techedet seem to show us that chemically it has 2 components. One of them at the visual and at both the 2 ends of the optical spectrum, one between red and infrared, the other between violet and ultraviolet. The one between violet and ultraviolet is chemically identical to vegetable indigo or jeans, if you can find real jeans on the market. And the one between red and infrared is something called tire red, a very, very deep, dark red maroon. And those two components together chemically were the chemistry of the Tractate dye, which was the most expensive dye in the ancient world. Now, what this is doing is a suggestion of Rabbi Yoshua as how we should conclude this Mesechet of logic. Let's see. First of all, we had this case of the ratio of the Mishnah, where one event happens to this woman, she gives birth, and it results with all of the resulting problems that she has to bring 7 or 8 additional births to fix the problem. And so he brings us a situation of something that starts with 1 and brings us to 7, or according to the Yeshomrim to 8. What's the Yeshomrim? The Yeshomrim is Aft Semerot Techedet, that the wool of this ram or sheep is used in the garment of the Kohen Gadol to hold the bells at the bottom of the garment, which would ring when he would go in and out. Okay? Now that's, again, so you go from 1 to 7 or 1 to 8, which is very nice and parallel to the ratio of the Mishnah. But he throws in this extra word, Ketzad. For example, Kolo Shiva, which means there are other examples. So many, many years ago, I brought this Mishnah to a gentleman with an interesting perspective on many things, Reb David, and he said to me, "Wow, this exactly describes the anatomy of the female reproductive system. Because there are these two shofar structures which accept the egg from the ovaries. They are connected to the 2 fallopian tubes, which then go into the womb, which then go into the various openings of the cervix to the pubic hairs of the woman. And so you should know that there may be other examples, but as everything else we've seen in Kinim, there are at least 2 examples of everything. That's part of the logic of the definition of this world. And furthermore, that whenever Chazal gives you a grocery list of components, they expect you to do the homework and to compose the grocery list together in the order that they've given it to you, to draw the picture and see where else you've seen this picture. However, this wonderful, wonderful Agadata from Rabbi Yoshua does not win the prize for the sweetest way to end this Mesechet Kinim. That goes to Rabbi Shimon ben Akashya. And Rabbi Shimon ben Akashya says, Omar, Ziknei Am Haaretz Kol Zman Shemazkinim Datan Mitarefet Aleichem. He says, the elderly, simple, earthly fellow. Now when we say Am Haaretz, it's not today's Am Haaretz who knows nothing. It's the Am Haaretz who knows halacha backwards and forwards. But he says, compared to a real Talmud Chacham, to a real Torah scholar, what do I know? I'm a nothing. Kol Zman Shemazkinim, the older this guy gets, Da'atan Mitarefet Aleichem, his understanding just sours and falls apart inside of him. Shenemar, as it says in a pasuk in Eov, Meisir Safad Ne'amanim, that it turns off the mouth, the speech of this faithful person. B'tam Zkenim Yikach, and all of his reasoning is taken from him because he accepts the reasoning of Chazal. Aval Ziknei Torah, but the elderly Torah scholar, Eino Kain, that's not the way his development proceeds. Ela, rather, calls man shemazkinim, all of the time that he continues to age and mature, da'atan mityashevet aleichem, his understanding continues to sit in him as a part of his own personal development. Shenemar, as it says in a second pasuk in Eov, b'yeshishim, in infirmity, chachma, there's knowledge, v'orach yamim, and in length of days, tavuna, an understanding of depth of details and complexity of reality. Now, why does Rabbi Yoshua win the prize here for this sweet statement? Okay, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yoshua finishes with Techelet, which is a wonderful, wonderful high level of Atzilut. But Rabbi Shimon finishes of Tavuna, which is even a higher level because it's deeper in the understanding package. But that's not enough. It's not just because of the last word. If you'll read it again, Rabbi Shimon has given us a kind of a joke in words. And you can read him like this. Rabbi Shimon ben Akashya Omer, Ziknei Am Haaretz, the elderly Am Haaretz, calls man shemaz kinin, all the time that he ages, da'atan mitarefet aleihem, that their understanding starts to be reduced inside of them. Shinamar, as it says in the pasuk, mesir safad nemanim, betam zayin kinin yikach. And the understanding of the 7 vessels of knowledge are taken from them, meaning they have no chidushim. Aval ziknei Torah einun kain. So he makes a play, just like we had in the Tanna Kama, that we had one woman going to 7 cases or 8 cases. He makes a play on the 7th zayin kinin, zkenim. However, what he says here is much, much deeper, as a suggestion of how to continue with the understanding of Mesechet Kinim. Because all of Mesechet Kinim essentially is dealing with 2 cases where they get mixed together and there's no identifying marks between them. I have a chatas gets mixed up with an ola. I have a chova that gets mixed up with a chova. I have things getting mixed up. So he doesn't have to bring us these 2 psukim. He could simply tell us what he wants to say about Am Haaretz and Talmud Chacham, and we can accept his opinion as being authoritative. When he brings us these 2 psukim, it's to force us to do the homework, to go back and learn Sefer Eov. The Sefer which I believe in the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu would be referred to as the Sefer Milchemet Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. This is the conflict that occurs inside of the mind of the mature scholar, which is a separate book, where Sefer Eov goes into, just as Mesechet Kinim, how much of the life package is not knowable. However many attempts that you have to explain circumstances and hashkafas, in the end of the day, they don't explain parts of the Metzias. And so Rabbi Shimon ben Akashya brings us these 2 psukim, and he asks us to do the homework. If you would reverse these 2 psukim, could you still use them? Would you think that the Ne'eman should be the Talmud Chacham and not the Am Haaretz, and the Yashish, the infirm person, should be the Am Haaretz and not the Talmud Chacham? Rabbi Shimon wants us to go back and do the homework. Whenever Chazal gives us psukim, they say, if you want to go through at the simple level, just look at the words that we're quoting. But if you really want to understand what's going on, go back and learn that perek, go back and learn that sefer, and see how the logic of the sefer turned on these quotes that they're giving us. And therefore, even though we've come to the conclusion of the simple first learning of Mesechet Kinim here, we have much, much homework to do to learn this according to a consistent shita of at least one of the Meforshim, and hopefully more than one of the Meforshim, and certainly to go back and to do all of the constructions that are suggested in this Mesechet and in other Mesechets, which Chazal expected us to do as diligent students of Torah. Thank you so much. I would like just again to mention, as you may see in the notes below this, that these shiurim on Mesechet Kinim are given in memory of my beloved wife who recently passed away, Brigitte Mercedes Bas Amram Jacqueline Fortuna from the family of Ben Baruch, and we sorely miss her and very much loved her. Thank you so much.